Alrighty, but we start tonight with the debate over euthanasia, and joining me now is the MP behind the End of Life Choice Bill, ACT leader David Seymour, and Maggie Barry, National MP, who is on the Justice Select Committee and a strong opponent of the bill. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David Seymour, could you paint a picture for us tonight? What would happen if this bill was to pass for someone who is terminally ill who might fit the criteria? What actually happens?
So a person who is terminally ill and is concerned about how their life might end, a person who perhaps is in that category of people who can't be helped by palliative care, and while I'm a big supporter of palliative care, there are some, might ask their doctor, look, I'm interested in assisted dying. Their doctor would then examine them, discuss with them all the options, talk with friends or family or relatives, other medical practitioners involved, examine them, read their notes, and if they are somebody who is 18 years of age, a New Zealand citizen or permanent resident, somebody that has a terminal condition with a prognosis of less than 6 months, someone who is mentally competent as judged by that doctor, and if the doctor's not sure, he can refer to a psychiatrist, someone who believes in their view, and this is really important, in their view that their suffering cannot be relieved in any other way. If they pass all those tests, the doctor then refers them to a second doctor who is blindly selected by the Ministry of Health, who then goes through it again. If both of those doctors agree that they're a person that meets all the criteria and they're mentally competent, doing it on their own will, and so on, then they can choose a time and place where their life can end on their time.
And just before I come to Maggie, how does that work? Can they take medicine themselves, or some sort of pill themselves, or does the doctor do it?
So under the term assisted dying, we're including voluntary euthanasia, where, as you say, the doctor does it, and also assisted suicide, where the person is given the means but they do it themselves.
So both options.
Yeah, and I think that's really important, because if you take someone like Rachel Reitmer, she lives in Christchurch, she has Huntington's disease, she's a big supporter of this bill. She says, I've had a great life. If it's all the same to you, I would like to control how and when it ends now. I know what a Huntington's death's like, and I don't want one. But critically, she would not physically be able to do it herself because of her condition. And the risk is that if you don't allow both voluntary euthanasia and assisted suicide, people will actually take the option earlier than they would have otherwise.
Okay, let's bring in Maggie Barry now. What sounds so bad about that scenario?
This is not a bill that's just going to affect a very small number of people who are at the end of their lives. By the definition of grievous and irremediable, it opens up a whole new arena of people. I sat on the Select Committee for about 28 days last year and heard submissions, among them the disabled community, who said that they are a very living example of grievous and irremediable. Their lives are of less value than that of others.
You propose taking that out?
Yeah, well, two things about that. First of all,
it's not up to him.
First of all, we've had... Well,
no, hang on. But if that is to be proposed to be taken out, but you're worried about that aspect of it.
No, the thing about it is that when the sponsoring member, in this case David Seymour, handed the bill over to the Select Committee, it becomes the property of the Select Committee. Right. And by grace and favour of the committee, we let him sit in, ask questions, give views sometimes, but he has no official status within the voting.
So let me put it another way. If it was taken out, would that ease some of your concerns? If it was just specifically for terminally ill?
Let me just, if you wouldn't mind, complete the reasoning behind why I don't support this bill. There are no safeguards for the vulnerable. There are some criteria there, and in every other country where they've had legislation of this kind, that criteria has changed very quickly, particularly in Canada, which this bill is based on here in New Zealand. What they have seen in the last 2 years is a complete change in the way that the criteria is applied. So people with depression, dementia, mental illnesses and so forth are able to be euthanized or to have assisted suicide. This is a seismic change in the way that our laws and our medical practice works. It is not just affecting a few people, it affects the vast majority of people who actually want to live. And for that small percentage who want to die, they are going to take the choice, to give them that choice, it's going to be taken away from others. It's too high a price to pay, and this bill is not fit for purpose.
Okay, I'm going to let David Seymour respond to that in 1 second, but I just want to ask you quickly, philosophically, is it the right of an individual to determine when they die, in your view, personally?
If people want to die, suicide is not illegal in New Zealand. They are also within their legal rights now to remove medication, refuse treatment, and not have
so
food
you don't
and
have any
drink.
philosophical, religious or ethical objection to that idea?
No, I don't. I don't have a, while I respect the faith-based issues with this bill, that is not where I'm coming from. I object strongly to the length and breadth of it and the fact it covers too many without protections for the vulnerable.
Slippery slope is a valid argument. If you look at the likes of the Netherlands and Belgium, it has increased. There are a far greater range of people who are able to utilise euthanasia.
Well, first of all, no, it's not. But can I just go back and just let people consider what Maggie Barry said a moment ago? Because, frankly, I think we've seen some of the callousness in the opposition to this bill. So, amateur violent suicide, which is a reality for far too many New Zealanders who have a terminal illness, according to research from Auckland Med School, that's okay. Suffering to the bitter end?
Of course it's not.
That's okay, according to Maggie's position.
Good palliative care means no one needs
Maggie,
to suffer.
can we... Okay. Second of all, suffering to the bitter end, that's okay.
No, of course it's not.
Of course, she says it's okay if a person decides to make any number of medical choices about whether to continue treatment or maybe just have a little bit too much morphine. As long as it's a double effect, as the medical profession call it, that's okay. All of that's okay. But a safeguarded process where the patient initiates it, where the patient's in control, that's not okay.
That's fine.
I think that is incredibly
you made your point,
callous.
but I want to come back to the slippery slope argument because it is one that keeps on coming up. Is it not correct that in places like Belgium and the Netherlands, they have, in particular Belgium, in 2002, they've expanded the range of conditions which this can apply? That is a fact, isn't it?
Well, no, it's not. They had initially a criteria that said you must be in a hopeless condition, you must be suffering hopelessly. Now, of course, that was always going to be something that could be interpreted in a range of ways. My bill is much clearer. You must have an irremediable medical condition or a terminal medical condition. You must be in an advanced state of irreversible decline.
So depression,
and capability.
Not an option?
Well, no, because if you are so depressed that you feel that your life is hopeless, you are not going to meet the criteria of being somebody who is capable to make the decision.
There are other examples. Oregon is one where the law hasn't been a slippery slope. So it can be done if the law is imposed correctly?
I think internationally looking at Canada is useful because it is exactly the model that Seymour has based his bill upon. And there now you can have euthanasia for dementia, for arthritis, for anorexia, for a range of other ailments. Depression's really hard to ascertain and to diagnose, particularly with one maybe 10-minute meeting. People can, even with dementia, they can put up a good show. The second doctor doesn't need to be someone that is known. In fact, neither doctor needs to be known to the patient, and they can go on Skype or some other means.
You're making it sound like this process this is a rigorous process with two doctors.
It's not rigorous, and it's very shortcut. And you don't have to know the doctors. You can doctor shop, and this group that's willing to act of doctors are already willing to give euthanasia. So they are convinced already. You don't need to convince them. And the vulnerable.
Let's get some response to that.
With the greatest of respect to Maggie, she is desperately trying to misrepresent what actually happens. You've got two doctors. Doctors who have spent their whole life becoming doctors, whose careers are at stake if they malpractice, who are liable under the Crimes Act to 14 years in jail if they get this wrong. The idea that they're going to do a 10-minute consultation on Skype and just off you go, I mean, that is completely absurd.
That's what happens.
And perhaps Maggie might like to consider the reason why it is that the Supreme Court of Canada, the Western Australian Parliament, the Quebec Select Committee and our own Attorney General have all said that the safeguards are adequate and that this bill is consistent.
We'll pick up on that. I'll come back to Maggie after the break. We've got plenty more time to go on this debate. So we'll pause there for a moment. Send us your thoughts. We're on Twitter at NZQ&A. You can email us at q&a@tvnz.co.nz. Stay with us. We will return to the euthanasia debate after the break.